right, so we're back for another deep dive, and today we're going to be getting into some pretty juicy stuff, some stuff that can get kind of controversial.
Oh, no, this one's going to be good.
Yeah, so this one, somebody sent us a live stream, and basically it's about a like a relationship influencer, David. Uh, I'm not going to say his last name.
Yeah.
But basically, this live stream, it's like a multi-person discussion about him. And basically, he's been advising men, like giving them all this advice about the types of standards they should have in relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And then it kind of comes out that his, the way he's living his life and specifically his choice of partner, it's kind of not matching up with the advice that he's giving.
Yeah, it definitely seems like there's a bit of a disconnect there, right? I mean, he's built this whole platform on advising men to hold women to these specific standards, and then his own actions seem to contradict that message.
Yeah, and just to make things even more spicy, there's this whole thing about, he made a comment about single mothers. I think he said something like recreational use only.
Oh, yeah. That comment definitely sparked a lot of outrage.
Yeah, and wouldn't you know it, his current partner is a single mother.
I mean, talk about adding fuel to the fire, right? So now everyone's wondering, like, was he serious about that recreational use only comment, or was he just trying to be provocative, or is there something else going on entirely?
Right. I mean, that's what we're trying to figure out here, right? Like, the live stream, it's got a lot of people accusing him of being a hypocrite. Some are defending him. And then it even goes into some pretty wild tangents. Like, I noticed there were some comparisons to Kevin Samuels.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, he was a pretty controversial relationship advisor himself. I think he sadly passed away last year.
Yeah, and then there's some even compared him to, like, drug dealers.
Drug dealers. Now, that's a comparison I wouldn't have expected.
Yeah, they were talking about how, the business model, like how he makes money. And they were comparing it to that.
Ah, I see. So it's not just about David and his personal life. It's about the whole online landscape of relationship advice and influencer culture in general. It makes you think about how we separate the message from the messenger, especially when the messenger is profiting from that very message.
Totally. And actually, the host of the live stream, they even talk about how they're having a hard time getting likes and super chats.
Oh, wow. So they're bringing their own financial struggles into it. That's pretty meta.
Right. It makes you think about how those financial pressures on content creators, it might be impacting the advice that they're giving.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's definitely a tension there between providing genuine insight and simply chasing engagement, even if it means stirring up controversy.
Exactly. And one of the first things that kind of stood out to me was David actually claims that he sued his own baby mama for full custody of his daughter.
Wait, seriously? When was this?
Yeah. And apparently his daughter was only 4 years old at the time.
Wow, that's pretty intense, especially considering his, previously stated views on single mothers.
Yeah. And in the live stream, the people there, they really press him on this. Like, they want to understand what exactly happened that led to him taking such a drastic measure.
And what does he say? Does he explain himself?
Well, he's kind of reluctant to give too many details. He says it's because of legal reasons.
Oh, of course, the classic legal reasons excuse.
But, that just makes people even more suspicious.
Right. I mean, it raises questions about transparency, doesn't it? When someone builds a platform on giving advice, how much are we entitled to know about their personal lives, especially when those lives seem to contradict their public persona?
Exactly. It's almost like we're seeing this whole struggle play out in real time, like, between how he's perceived publicly and then what's actually going on in his private life.
And, this isn't just some gossip rag, right? This is affecting real people. His followers, especially men who might be taking his advice to heart, they could be significantly influenced by these inconsistencies. It makes you wonder about the psychological impact of putting your trust in someone whose actions don't align with their words.
Yeah, and it's not even just about, this one guy and whether he's a hypocrite or not. Like, it gets into some bigger issues, too.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Well, like, the whole way we talk about single mothers in our society.
Oh, yeah, that's true. They talk about that a lot in the live stream.
Yeah, like they're saying it's become such a loaded term, like a label that's just used to put women down without even considering, like their individual situations or the challenges they might be facing.
Yeah, they're basically saying it's like this weaponized term, right?
Exactly. And it's like part of this bigger pattern of judging women based on, their relationship history or whether they have kids or not. Yeah. And they even point out the double standard too, right? Like how men can have kids, with multiple different women and no one bats an eye.
Right. But a woman is a single mother and suddenly she's, labeled and judged for it.
It really makes you think about how ingrained those gender roles are.
Yeah, for sure. And it's not like these are new conversations either, but it's interesting to see how they're playing out in this specific context, with this whole influencer drama.
Yeah, and then it gets even more complicated because, David's partner, she's pretty active on social media.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and apparently she's not shy about showing off her body.
Huh. So then the conversation turns to boundaries in relationships, right?
Yeah,
Especially when one person is an influencer.
right. Like, where do you draw the line between, personal expression and promoting content that might clash with your partner's message?
Especially when that message is all about, holding women to these really specific standards.
And some people are even arguing that David is basically profiting off his partner's appearance, which makes the whole hypocrisy thing even messier.
It definitely adds another layer to the power dynamics at play, right?
For sure. And then, just when you think the conversation can't get any crazier, they start talking about Bill Cosby and Donald Trump.
Wait, what? How do those names even come up?
I know, right? It's a total tangent, but it's also kind of fascinating.
I mean, they're both figures who've faced major public downfalls tied to accusations of hypocrisy.
Yeah, Cosby was like America's dad, and then boom, all these allegations come out, and it just shattered his whole image.
Right. It's like a reminder that outward appearances can be super deceiving.
And then there's Trump, who's faced, countless accusations of hypocrisy throughout his career.
It's almost like they're using these extreme examples to try and make sense of the David situation,
Like, how do you reconcile someone's words with their actions, especially when those actions have real-world consequences?
It's a question we're all grappling with in this age of influencers and online personas, right?
Totally. And in the live stream, they really keep pushing David to explain himself. Like to address the inconsistencies between what he's saying about single mothers and then his own choices.
And what does he say?
Well, he mostly just deflects and gets defensive.
So he's not really engaging with the criticism in a meaningful way.
Nope. It's like he wants to benefit from those provocative statements without having to actually deal with the fallout.
Which honestly just makes him look worse, right?
So it just adds to the whole lack of transparency. It makes you question his authenticity.
And then, of course, in the middle of all this, the live stream host keeps begging for likes and super chats.
Right. Like, don't forget, this is a business.
Which just adds another layer to the whole thing, right? Because it makes you wonder if they're genuinely concerned about holding David accountable or if they're just trying to capitalize on the drama.
It's like they're all playing these roles in this weird online reality show.
And as viewers, we have to be careful not to get swept up in it all, right?
Exactly. We need to develop that critical thinking and be able to discern, what's real and what's just performance. So that recreational use only comment really keeps coming up in the live stream.
Yeah, but that's the thing that seems to be sticking with everyone, right?
Yeah, like no one can agree if it's, a real philosophy that he actually believes or just like a bad joke. Or maybe he's, trying to be controversial on purpose.
Yeah, and he doesn't really help himself because he refuses to clarify what he meant.
Right. It's like by not addressing it directly, he's just giving it more power.
It's kind of like he's trying to control the narrative, But in doing so, he's actually reinforcing those very dynamics he claims to be challenging.
It's a weird paradox, isn't it?
Definitely makes you wonder about his willingness to actually engage in like a real conversation and maybe admit he was wrong.
Yeah, and okay, we've got hypocrisy, mixed messages, financial incentives, a whole lot of yelling. What are we supposed to take away from all of this? Like, what's the point of going through all this messy stuff?
Well, I think it's a good reminder that we can't just be passive consumers of all this online content,
Especially when it comes to advice that could, really affect our lives.
Exactly. We need to be actively thinking critically, questioning what we see and hear.
So how do we actually do that? Like, how do you develop that critical lens you were talking about?
Well, first of all, don't just automatically believe someone because they have a lot of followers or seem successful.
Well, just because they're popular doesn't mean they're right.
Exactly. Popularity and credibility are not the same thing.
So we have to remember they're creating these personas online, right?
Mm-hmm. And the online persona might not be the full picture of who they really are.
Yeah. So we got to look deeper, right? Like, what are their motivations? Are there any inconsistencies? Are there other perspectives we should be considering?
Exactly. Don't be afraid to ask those tough questions and demand evidence.
And what about the money part of it all?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do we deal with the fact that a lot of online content is driven by profit?
That's a good point. Engagement metrics like likes and comments, they can create a situation where content creators might prioritize being sensational over actually being truthful.
So basically, don't get sucked into the hype just because someone's an influencer.
Right. Do your own research, think for yourself, and trust your gut.
Basically, be a smart consumer of all this online stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And remember, knowledge is power, right?
Absolutely. The more informed you are, the better equipped you'll be to navigate all of this stuff and make choices that are right for you.
That's a great way to put it.
Well, on that note, I think we've done enough deep diving for one day.
This one was a doozy.
It really was.
Hmm?
But hey, it gave us all something to think about, right?
For sure.
So remember, be critical, be curious, and keep asking those questions.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
We'll catch you on the next deep dive.